we need the answers further than what you're just saying.
Yeah, I understand where you're coming from, and there will be people who will fail. And I say the intention is not to leave people driving who are not safe on the road. The intention is to make sure that the testing regime is fair and it doesn't impose a significant cost burden on them. There are a host of small minibuses throughout communities, wherever you look, that have been provided over the years for those particular organisations. Some of them sit in garages for months without being used. I want to have a look at those, and I want to get I suppose, an assessment carried out as to how we can better utilise some of the rolling stock that we've got out there that currently is not being provided to the community, and it could be used at a greater rate by the community. And I think that these are the issues. As I say, there doesn't seem to me to be a connection between, number one, you've lost your licence, well, what do I do now? Where do I go now? How do I get to doctor's appointments? I've got, what do I actually do? There doesn't seem to be that connectivity at the moment. I want to make sure that we get that in place. Now, certainly I think community transport is a fantastic initiative. I've seen it rolled out in a number of locations, and we've got a lot of it operating in smaller towns, in particular in country areas. We need to explore that further and get that connectivity, that if someone is all of a sudden stranded. I've had a situation with multi-purpose taxi scheme where people have lost their licence, have gone and applied, where you don't actually fit the category, so you can't get a multi-purpose taxi car, you don't have a licence, and no one's really provided any form of connectivity to you to any other form of transport. So they're the sort of things, in my view, are the breakdown at the moment, where we need to do a lot of work. But to me, as I say, the vehicles are out there and they're not being utilised. The organisations that have them will be very protective about the ownership of those vehicles. So how we move forward and get them involved and get better use and get better connectivity for people who've been basically stranded is a challenge, but it's certainly something that I've raised in the party room in the past and something I want to pursue.
But Minister, those community buses are not accessible.
I understand. Not at all, I understand that.
G'day. I'm Mark and I'm from Dandenong. Just a couple of quick ones. My uncle, or one of my uncles, my wife's, uncle, he's getting set to have his licence tested and he's guaranteed to lose it because his eyesight's not good. And what you're saying about accessibility is great. He says if they take my licence off me, which they ultimately will, he's got no way of getting to the doctors. You can't do this, you can't do that. He's going to drive anyway. It may be illegal, but I'm not happy about it. I've told him not to do it. I think he should get a scooter, a mobility scooter, which would get him to and from wherever he wants to go. But it's a really difficult thing for him. The other question I have, or the real question that I have is, there's this major black spot on Springvale Road where the trains cross. Now, the RACP and every other bugger has told you about this, and it was in your election promises. It's a giant mess, and it was okay to do Nuttawading, it was okay to do Dorset Road and put the train under and do Nuttawading and put the train under the Springvale station there. The question I have is, how long is this going to take to get cleaned up and sorted out? And is it going to get cleaned up and sorted out?
Springvale Road, Springvale is one of our major priorities.
Well, it's a major priority, really.
In first term, to deal with that project. In relation to the person you spoke about with the having their licence taken off them and the fear that they'll continue to drive, as I say, at the moment, there just doesn't seem to be, to me, the information available to people that, number one, you've lost your licence, you hand your licence in, but there is no follow-up to that in terms of connecting them with what is available.
Taxi cards, he won't get a taxi card.
Well, Well, this is the issue, that needs to be
Should have one or the other.
well, if you're going to lose your licence, there then should be a follow-up action that takes place to say, look, you've lost your licence, however, we're going to facilitate and work with you to see if you can get a multi-purpose taxi car. Or we're going to work with you to see if we can get you into a scooter as quickly as we can. Or there is a community busing arrangement or a telebus arrangement in this area, and we'll put you in contact with the people who run it. I mean, there just doesn't seem to me, I said I've had first-hand experience of this sort of situation on a number of occasions, and it just doesn't flow. Quite often there are agencies out there, but there isn't the connectivity, the information isn't passed on, and I want to make sure that we get that right. Thank you.
My name is Janice Florence,
Yep.
and under the National Disability Transport Standards, the transport providers, the companies have to meet certain quotas by certain years, like so many train stops by 2012. But there's a situation where in certain places they're providing a number of tram stops, but they're not providing the trams. So, or they're providing the trams and not the tram stops in order to fill their quotas. So therefore the system still isn't accessible or usable. For example, in Thornbury they've recently built a series of platform stops in St George's Road because they're easy to build there because there's lots of space, which is fantastic. But no low floor trams ever go along there. In nearby Nicholson Street, low floor trams go all the time, but there are no platform stops. So both lines are still totally inaccessible for people like us and for frail elderly. So what will your government do about making the system actually usable?
Look, as I said before, it's all about prioritising how you spend your money and where you spend the money to get the best possible outcome. There have been decisions made in the past that I would never have made as a minister. As I say, there might be ticketing systems one when you've got situations like you refer to there. We've got an order at the moment in for new trams, low floor trams, that will deal with the issue in terms of the stops that are being designed for low floor trams, but in terms of other areas where they've got the stops built, no trams running. I mean, I've inherited this problem, as I say. I want to make sure we don't have a repeat of it, but it's not something that I'm going to be able to fix overnight for you. And I understand how frustrating it is, particularly, as I say, when you see, and I will be making some further announcements into the future about how money is being spent and where money is being spent. I'll be developing a very back-to-basics approach, fundamentals of the public transport system, fundamentals of accessibility in particular, have to be included. And like I said, when we go down the pathway of a program, as you say, of stops, then certainly organisations such as VCOSS should have a say, an understanding of what the government's thinking is and whether or not that those decisions are actually going to provide a benefit. As you say, we've got low floor trams, wrong stops, no low floor trams. I mean, I don't know how those decisions were made.
Those trams actually come from the same depot, so that's an organisation.
Yeah.
Can't they just reroute them?
Well, you know, they may be able to, but I can't. I'll certainly, as I say, raise that as an issue when I speak with Yarra Trams again. But it is the real problem is the fact that we just don't have enough rolling stock at this point in time. There are load breaches occurring across the network. Current trams are totally overcrowded, and until we get the new rolling stock start to come on board, it's not going to be fixed. Take one more.
I'd like to ask. Yes? Thank you. Hi, Minister. George from the Youth Disability Advocacy Service. Congratulations on your win. I wanted to pose a question around accessible taxis, the wheelchair accessible taxi program. The current situation is that at peak periods around 8 to 9, 30 a.m. or between 4 and 6, and even worse so on Friday and Saturday nights, there's hardly any chance of someone in a wheelchair that uses taxis to access an accessible taxi without waiting for a very, very long time. 2 to 3 hours is not unusual. Obviously the result of that is that people can't get jobs, they stop going out, they become very isolated. The former government promised that they'd fix this, and they haven't. I'm just wondering what sort of thoughts do you have on solving that problem?
All right. There are currently 411 wheelchair accessible taxis in operation in Victoria, 242 in the metro area, which is 6% of all taxis. There's 27 in the outer suburban area, which is 22% of the fleet, 31 in regional centres, which is 15% of the fleet, and 111 in rural Victoria, which is 27% of the fleet. 200 fixed-term conventional licences and 330 fixed-term wheelchair accessible taxi licences are currently being released. That's another 330 wheelchair accessible taxi licences. These 330 licences will almost double the size of the wheelchair accessible fleet. And there's 3.3 million taxi operators in country communities purchase wheelchair accessible taxis. So there's going to be a massive increase in the fleet of wheelchair accessible taxis. The secret to that is then to ensure that the taxis that are available are actually used for the purpose in which they were intended. Now, I've had discussions with the Victorian Taxi Directorate as to what mechanisms that they're going to use to be able to track and make sure that we don't have wheelchair accessible taxis sitting out at the airport or at other locations looking for premium fares and not being available to pick up people who are in wheelchairs. Now, I've asked them to go away and to come back to me with some feedback and information, because if we're going to make an investment of this size, then it has to be used for the purpose in which it was intended for. But it is a significant investment. The licences have all been issued. There is still a process going through at the moment of, what do we say, it's assessing all of the applicants. But basically, the licences have been issued. There's some final documentation that's currently taking place, but it's not a program that anyone can wind back. I've asked the department, where are we up to with this? They say it's locked in. Everyone who wants to be part of the program, the potential drivers have lodged applications, they've been vetted and all the rest of it. The licences have been allocated. It's simply a matter of the announcements and getting the taxis out onto the ranks. So it's a significant investment.
But Minister, the second half of the statement is the one that's important. Many of us would see the Victorian Taxi Directorate as being closer to an arm of the Taxi Drivers Association than an arm of government. That's where the problem has to be solved.
I have some plans, and I will make some further announcements in relation to what I'm going to do with the taxi industry. There is no doubt at this point in time, customer satisfaction is appalling. The image of the industry has taken a beating. Career drivers have walked away from it. The confidence of the industry and the drivers in the VTD is not strong. So there's going to have to be some changes made, and I will be making some announcements in the not too distant future about what we're going to do. I acknowledge that as being a significant problem. Okay, yes.
So the Minister's now got to go because there's a pre-existing appointment that he's going to be a bit late for because he was so generous as to come to this event. So I just really want to express our very strong appreciation to Minister Mulder that this was the first public event as a Minister for Transport, and I think we've seen from the response and certainly VCOSS's conversations in the past when the Minister was in opposition, is he's a man who's looking for practical solutions, and I'm hoping that some of the topics and many more will move forward under your domain, Minister. So thank you very much indeed.
Thank you all. Have a good day.
Thank you.
And I think a couple of people might also